Well, you can't have mental health and stress issues without that affecting your physical body. And the flip side, too, if you've sustained an injury or you've got an illness, that's going to affect you mentally and emotionally, too.
What's going on, guys? It's Yahavy, David. St. Clair Speaks. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. I'm your host, Yahavy St. Clair. Guys, we are sitting here with another incredible guest from across the world, right here in Canada. Guys, super excited. We was chit-chatting right before, of course, this episode. Guys, I'm sitting down with Dr. Jen Harrison. Dr. Jen Harrison is a stress and body-mind health expert, a certified Canfield Success principal trainer. She's also a success and mindset coach, best-selling author and speaker. She helps entrepreneurs and natural health practitioners and professionals. She pretty much helps create an empowering success and mindset and helps others manifest their desired results that they're seeking in their life. Dr. Jen, I would like to welcome you onto the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. Please give our listeners a 3 to 5 minute introduction on yourself, your brand, your business, and what brings you onto the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, Yahavy. I really appreciate the opportunity. So basically, yes, I help entrepreneurs and professionals to manage stress in an effective way so that they can also boost their brain power, so that they can clear out limiting beliefs that may be holding them back so they can create a success mindset, which then in turn makes it so much easier to manifest goals in both business goals, professional goals, but personal goals as well. Because there's no point in having a successful business if your personal life and your health are failing or you're sacrificing your health and happiness. And then the flip side is that it's great to have good health and good relationships, but if your business is failing or not succeeding the way that you want it to, then that can cause inherent stress. And then you're not able to help all the people that you want to be helping. So I really feel like my whole life has actually led me up to where I am now. It's been like one big long continuum. Like when I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a teacher. And then when I got into high school, I thought I wanted to be a psychologist. And then a few years later, I got interested in athletic therapy, sports medicine. So I ended up with a university degree, actually with a major in psychology and a minor in zoology, where I studied anatomy and physiology and advanced human anatomy. So I actually started off studying the mind and the body as completely separate entities. And then when I was studying a few years later, studying athletic therapy, this would have been in the mid to late 80s. That's when I was first exposed to sports psychology. It was just sort of starting to come up more in the forefront. People were becoming more aware of it. With sports psychology, not only helping in athletic performance, but also helping elite athletes heal from injuries or from surgeries that they needed from injuries. So that's when, and then just with some other professional development courses that I was taking, I got exposed to people like Dr. Deepak Chopra and Dr. Joan Borisenko, who is one of the co-founders of the Mind Body Medicine Clinic at Harvard. And that was sort of started my journey in studying mind body medicine and the impact that stress has on, both our mind and our body. And that the mind and body actually are completely interconnected. It's literally impossible to separate the two. And then in the mid-90s, I decided to go back to school to become a chiropractor as well. And I've always taken a mind-body approach with my practice. And because, someone could come in with neck or back pain, but I would be asking them, well, what are your stress levels at work? What are your stress levels at home? So, they might come in with a physical ailment, it could be digestive system problems or headaches or, neck or back pain, but, maybe they're having a lot of stress at work. Maybe they're, struggling with their business, or, maybe if they're in the corporate world, their company's been taken over by another company and it's all, chaotic transition, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe they're having to care for, an aging or ill parent. And so those are important things to know about, because you can treat the physical body all you want, but if you're not, making sure that the person's supported mentally and emotionally, you're not going to get the healing. And so I've always been, I've been a student of personal development as well for many, many years. And studying mindset work and learning different tools like emotional freedom techniques, which is really great for helping to deal with stress, as well as limiting beliefs and even past trauma. And so I wanted to be able to help more people than just in my practice. I've always had a low volume practice because I like to spend a lot of quality time with my patients. So in 2008, I actually got an idea for a book, but I was also teaching at some colleges and universities, and I was teaching some professional development courses to healthcare professionals. So it took me a while, like it often does with writers and authors, to get the book completed. But I finally did, and then I launched my website in 2013. So my business is, like many entrepreneurs, my online business has gone through many incarnations over the last number of years. So where I'm at now is that I help, as we talked about before, helping entrepreneurs and professionals. And I do that through my book. It's called Stress Self to Best Self, a Body, Mind, Spirit Guide to Creating a Happier and Healthier You. I do it through some online courses, really powerful ones that I've created. And I also do one-on-one success mindset coaching as well. So so it's just kind of all tied in together. So I have my online business, and I still maintain a part-time athletic therapy chiropractic practice in a multidisciplinary clinic.
Wow. So, man, I am super excited for this. So I was jotting down some notes from what you talked about and what you mentioned. Talk to us a little bit more about the mind-body medicine and how that goes with pretty much just optimizing your brain power.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. It's especially with the pandemic, there's been a lot more focus on mental health, and I really wish they'd call it body mind health, because you can't be mentally and emotionally stressed without it affecting your physical body. It's literally impossible. The research has been around for decades and really centuries if you look at it from a cultural anthropological perspective. But just as an example, when you get really stressed, you can actually have up to a 70% decrease in blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain, which is responsible for learning and retaining new information, for intellectual thinking, for decision making. So, how can you be making good, like business or even life decisions, when you're so stressed out? When you're stressed out, your body produces a lot of cortisol, which is a well-known stress hormone, which is okay in the short term. It can be helpful, but if you continue to be under chronic stress, then that can have a lot of negative impacts and actually promote inflammation in your body. When you're stressed out, you get increased production of adrenaline, also known as epinephrine or norepinephrine. And you can have increased muscle tension. It has a negative impact on your digestive system. When you're in fight or flight mode, it's called, you actually have a decrease in blood flow going to your digestive system. You have less muscle contraction going through your intestines, moving the food through and helping to digest it. You have decreased production in digestive enzymes that help digest your food. So that's why a lot of times when people are stressed and plus they're eating on the run, they end up with all sorts of digestive system problems, and they can't figure out, where that's coming from. They think it's a completely separate issue, and it's not. And interestingly, the opposite of stress mode or fight or flight mode is actually called rest and digest mode. And of course, your immune system, being stressed out has a huge a negative impact on your immune system. That's been known for many, many years. So it's a full mind-body connection. And what's interesting is that you could be physically in a stressful position, where maybe someone is yelling at you, or, you're getting mugged on the street, or, something really extreme, or, I love to hike in the mountains. So, maybe there's a grizzly bear in your path, and you will have that reaction. But your body can also have the reaction when you're just thinking of possibly a memory, either a traumatic memory or an upsetting memory. It could be, an argument you had with your spouse, or, maybe you had to fire an employee, or, something that was upsetting to you. Or it can even be, anticipating something in the future. Maybe you have to have a difficult conversation with a loved one, or, maybe you've got a client that you have to keep chasing after because they haven't paid their invoice. And so you'll get an increase in heart rate. You might be sweating a bit more and increased tension just thinking about something that hasn't even happened yet. So that's the full mind body integration. So at a certain level, people are aware of this, but I think a lot of people still consider it separate. And even as I said, even how we discuss it, we talk about mental health issues. Well, you can't have mental health and stress issues without that affecting your physical body. And the flip side too, if you've sustained an injury or you've got an illness, that's going to affect you mentally and emotionally too.
Oh, man. So Sticking on the topic of stress, how can we decompress from stress?
That is an excellent question. I would say with the pandemic, people were stressed out before the pandemic, but then I think the pandemic really revealed, the chinks in the armor, or the cracks in the facade. And so I know, even for myself, I mean, I'm a stress and body mind health expert. I've been studying this for, over 30 years. I had to up my game. So the thing that's important with stress is that you really have to have a daily practice in mind. You want to be proactive, not reactive. So I usually recommend to people a couple of different things. There's just some I like making things really simple, doable, and actionable. Otherwise, they won't happen. So, for example, even just doing a simple breathing meditation, just taking 10 deep breaths in and out. And, just make sure the amount of air you breathe in equals the amount of air you breathe out. And you can use a mantra. A mantra I like to teach people is just a really simple one. You just say to yourself as you inhale, I breathe in relaxation. I breathe out tension. And just repeat that 10 times. If you were to do that once an hour, instead of the stress increasing as the day goes on, and then you've got super high stress, at the end of the day, and then you've got to do a lot of work to get it down so that you can even hope of getting a good night's sleep. Instead of it doing that, you can modulate the stress. So the stress goes up, but then you can do a breathing meditation to kind of bring the stress back down. And so that at the end of the day, your stress levels aren't going to be as high as if you didn't deal with it at all. So something like that is very, very simple. Another technique that I love, and I'll just touch upon it quickly, is called emotional freedom techniques. I'm not sure if you and your community are familiar with that. It's also known as EFT or tapping. And it involves tapping over a specific set of acupressure points on the head and upper body while verbally stating what you're worried about. And it's shown to decrease cortisol levels, to send a calming signal to the brain, to the amygdala in the brain. To calm your nervous system down. And it's wonderful because I use it as part of my success mindset coaching to help people break through limiting beliefs that are holding them back and that could be stressing them out. But it can also be used to help people deal with trauma. But you can also use it, so you can work with like a psychologist or a success coach, or with a EFT practitioner. But you can also learn, it's called the basic recipe, that you can use just as a self-care tool for dealing with the day-to-day stress. And I actually have a how to do EFT video on my website, on my homepage. So that's another really simple tool. It only takes a couple of minutes to go through a couple of rounds of tapping, and that can make a huge difference in calming your nervous system down. So it's important to have these tools in place and be using them consistently. And as I said, they're really simple. Like, sometimes people get daunted and think, oh, jeepers, well, like I don't have an hour to meditate every day. And that's fine, because there's little simple ones that you can do, like even that breathing meditation. Sometimes I'll just do it, if there's a long lineup at the grocery store, I won't necessarily be stressed out, but it's just like, well, I'm standing here, and instead of, going down the rabbit hole of social media on my phone, I'll just stand there and do a breathing meditation. Nobody needs to know I'm all chill. And by the time I get to the checkout, it's all good. So just doing, simple strategies like that. I also encourage people to, I call it, to follow the basics. It's a real foundational piece, and it's simple, but it gets overlooked a lot. So even just things like drinking like at least 1.5 liters to 2 liters of water, like say 6 to 8 cups of water a day. When your brain is fully hydrated, it's 80% water. And when we get stressed out, we want to support our brain and nervous system and body as much as possible. So just making sure you're drinking enough water throughout the day. Try to avoid, caffeine and alcohol. Like a lot of times people depend on they're not getting enough sleep, which is another foundational piece. So they end up using, caffeine to keep them up throughout the day. But then, as I said, when your stress levels are high, then people end up, drinking beer or wine at the end of the day, or, heavier, or, do drugs, whatever. And that is a very slippery slope. It may feel like you're managing things in the short term between the caffeine and the alcohol, or your drug of choice, but it's a very slippery slope. So just and eating nutritionally too, and at regular intervals throughout the day. There's lots of easy ways to be preparing healthy foods and snacks that you can take with you wherever you need to go. So if you're doing those foundational pieces, then when something unexpected happens, you get, a phone call that a loved one's been in a car accident, or, something like that, then you've got more resilience. You've got more gas in the tank to deal then with those kind of crisis situations. So I find that really those are foundational pieces that and they're simple to implement as well.
You mentioned something as you were talking, keyword of limited beliefs. Can you touch on that? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Limiting beliefs are basically, well, first of all, I just want to talk about what a belief is. A belief is just something that we've told ourselves over and over and over again to the point where we believe it's true. And you can have supportive beliefs. Like, I can host a podcast. I can do that. There's some people would have the opposite and go, "Oh, I could never host a podcast. I'm really nervous, or I'm an introvert. There's no way I could do a podcast." So that would be the difference between having a supportive belief and a limiting belief. So limiting beliefs can come up in all sorts of different ways and impact us. So for example, it may be that, I'm not smart enough, like maybe I didn't graduate from high school or I didn't finish college or university. So I'm not smart enough. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. My skin's not the right color. My voice isn't a good speaking voice. It could be, yeah, like I'm not rich enough. I'm too poor. I'm, like and there's other limiting beliefs that are kind of sneaky in that, there'll be people who are really competent at doing a lot of things, but the limiting belief there maybe is I have to do it all. So I have to do all the social media marketing. I have to do all the, take care of every single penny and aspect of my business. I have to, look after the kids. I have to do all the cooking. I have to do the grocery shopping. And so, you look at these people and you think, wow, they really have it all together. Look at all the things they're doing. But it's really that limiting belief that's actually driving them. And that can be causing them extra stress when there's stuff that they really could and should be delegating to free up extra bandwidth to be able to operate in their zone of genius in their business, or be able to have more time, personal time for their self-care, or just, spend with their family and friends. So it's those types of limiting beliefs that can hold us back from achieving our goals and also cause us additional stress. Fear of failure is another one too. Like, it has to be perfect. And so, as a recovering perfectionist, I can spend hours tweaking a video or, doing work on my website. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to produce good quality. That is very important. But then you can also overdo it, and it can be the fear of failure that can hold you back, and you can get stuck in the perfection loop where you're spending, way too much time before you actually launch your product that could really be helping people. So you're kind of, holding back from serving the people that you're wanting to serve. Fear of success is another limiting belief too. It'll be like, oh wow, well if I, I'm helping like this many clients, like how am I going to have time to deal with all of that? And then I'm going to have to hire new team members, and so we can kind of hold ourselves and keep us small because we're intimidated because of fear of success.
As you were talking about limited beliefs, I was thinking about, so would you say that's the starting point going into personal development? Because that's the first thing I was thinking about as you were talking about. I'm like, okay, I see how that kind of ties together. Can you touch on personal development?
Yes, a key part of personal development is getting to know yourself. Getting to know yourself, why you do the things you do, why you think the things you think. And it's kind of like going into a dark closet and with a flashlight and just kind of shining the light on things that have been stored there that you didn't even know were there. Oftentimes, people will see that analogy of an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is like only 10%, and then the other 90% is below the water. And that's kind of like our, conscious mind and subconscious mind. So a lot of the limiting beliefs that we have are things that we were taught as children, by our parents or teachers or, relatives, or, maybe from our faith community. And these days, there's huge social media influence and influencers that can embed beliefs. And again, beliefs can be both limiting or they can be supportive. And so a lot of times they'll be running in the background and you don't even know they're there until you start doing some personal work to uncover them. So just as an example for myself, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I grew up on a small farm in rural Canada in the prairies. And so, my mom and dad, they worked, 365 days a year and, to help support and feed all of us kids. So we had livestock, we had grain farming. We, did a combination of a whole bunch of things. And so I remember as a little kid hearing that one of the medical doctors in town, he and his wife had gone to Jamaica for a holiday. And I literally remember thinking, I was probably 7 or 8 years old at the time, thinking, wow, how is that even possible to have that much money to be able to go on a holiday? Like that just was beyond my comprehension. And so that kind of stayed with me. And so for many, many years, I actually, I would spend, easily, hundreds or thousands of dollars on professional development courses. But I would never think to spend the equal amount on just a plain holiday. And so I would tie in holidays, like maybe if I went to a conference in Florida, then I would tack on, a few extra days, but it had to be associated with work. So once I uncovered that limiting belief and understood where that was coming from, and it's not that, the work ethic that my parents had was horrible. It's just that, 8-year-old me had, connected the dots and not necessarily correctly. And that placed a limiting belief on me in terms of me professionally, but then also in terms of me, taking time for myself to recharge my batteries.
Thank you for streaming this episode of the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. Don't forget to visit StclairSpeaks.com and order your copy of my first book, Sweats to Suits, available now in Kindle and paperback edition. If you want to be my next guest, or my next guest, give me a referral, and I will sponsor your business in an ad segment just like this. Visit StclairSpeaks.com and learn more about the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast proposal. It's that time. One thing that I've noticed, and I guess it's like the form and the way I was asking these questions and the way it led up, right? I asked you about, limited beliefs, personal development. Then I'm looking right here and I'm like, okay, so that kind of leads into another thing, right? Manifested desired results, right? Manifesting the lifestyle that you want. That starts with your belief system. It starts with personal development. It starts with these things leading into the lifestyle that you want. Can you also, I kind of see how it connects, but can you also break that down? Because I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, I have it right here on paper. I'm like, wait, that makes so much sense. I'm like, it's so easy, but yet it's not. Can you break it down for us?
That's a perfect way to say it, Yahavy, is that it's so simple and yet it's not. Whenever we challenge ourselves to take on a new project, learn a new skill set, we're looking at taking ourselves or our business to the next level, that's when there's going to be resistance. And that's when the limiting beliefs are going to come out of the woodwork and become more apparent if you're looking for them, if you have that awareness. So whenever you, we'll just you starting your podcast, for example. Now, I'm not saying that this maybe happened to you, but I'm sure it happens to a lot of people starting their podcast. There'll be self-doubt. It'll be like, oh, well, who am I to start a podcast? There's like 30 bajillion podcasts out there already. Like, what do I have to say? Or, how am I going to find my guests? How am I going to do this? And so you have all this resistance that can cause a lot of stress. And so until you have tools, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through journaling, whether it be through working with emotional freedom techniques, or the EFT tapping can be very helpful with this. Once you learn to kind of tune in and identify, the resistance that you're experiencing and how it's feeling in your body. Like it might be manifesting as tightness in your chest, or maybe your shoulder muscles and neck muscles get tight. Yeah, that can prevent you from achieving your goals. I know for me, what I've had to learn, and I often have to keep reminding myself, is that when I'm taking on trying to take my business to the next level, it'll be the negative self-talk, the chatter, the resistance. Sometimes it shows up as procrastination. Instead of getting all, worked up about it, I'll take a step back and go, oh, what is this trying to show me? What is the life lesson in this for me that I need to learn? What limiting belief is popping up? Where is that coming from? And how can I clear it out? And so if you're on a continue, like I really believe that the reason that we're all here is to continue to learn and grow. And so there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be, some resistance, but it doesn't have to be something that we're afraid of. It can be an opportunity to learn something new about ourselves. It can be an opportunity to maybe, learn a new tool or a new technique to help address that so that we can clear that out. And then, whenever we've gone through a challenge, then that's a wonderful opportunity to help other people and to share our experience with other people and help them along the journey too. Because I remember when I learned this, and I've shared this with a lot of people, is that every single person in the world, whether it be an Olympic athlete, whether it be, the Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins, Oprahs of the world, Marie Forleo's, like whoever it may be, everybody goes through this. Everybody goes through challenges. Everybody goes through the negative self-talk. Everybody goes through the resistance. It's just that the people who, we perceive to be at the top of their game, they're just more consistent at working through the resistance to achieve their goals. And they go knowing that if they have a goal that they're working toward, they know going in that there's going to be challenges. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be roadblocks. And the training that I did with Jack Canfield, a lot of people know him as the chicken soup for the soul guy, but he's also a New York Times bestselling author with a book called The Success Principles. He's one of the top success trainers in the world. And so I mean, that's one of the key success principles is that you go in knowing that there's going to be some resistance. It's not just going to be easy peasy, and we get lulled into thinking that it is easy because social media is a prime example because everybody's showing the Facebook filter, the Instagram filter, the Twitter filter, whatever it may be, everybody's happy, everybody's successful, things are going their way. And so it's hard sometimes to find, top quality people that are really authentic in sharing their struggle and what they've gone through. Gabby Bernstein is great at being really authentic and vulnerable. Brene Brown, Lewis Howes, those are some really top people in the personal development field that are very authentic in sharing that, this isn't easy. It may look easy on the outside, but so it doesn't matter whether you're, a solopreneur or you're just starting your business or, maybe you're struggling with your business or whether you're at the top of your game. It doesn't matter. Everybody experiences resistance and challenges. It's just a matter of, learning and developing tools and being consistent in using them.
Yeah, there's this quote that I really like this quote. There is nothing holding you back but the idea of something holding you back.
Exactly.
So
beautiful.
I have a question for you. Is it really failure if we've learned how to succeed from it?
Absolutely not. I don't really look at, I've used the word failed a few times. It's only a failure, I think, if you give up and quit trying. And so, and that doesn't mean a question when I'm struggling with something is I'll ask myself, what's the life lesson in this for me? And so even if something didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to, that can be a huge gift because it can either reveal, let's say, a limiting belief, for example, that's maybe been holding you back in a whole bunch of different areas of your life, like not just your business. Maybe it's been holding you back in how you care for your health, in how you show up for your community, how you show up in your relationships, whether, your love relationships or friendships. But it can also be sometimes guidance, like sometimes things don't work out because that's actually not the way it was meant to go. Another opportunity will open up. And so sometimes it's actually guidance, but we have to take time to kind of sit and discern the information and kind of take a look and go, okay, I keep meeting resistance over and over and over again. Is this telling me that maybe this isn't a direction I'm needing to go to? Or is it just that there's some things that I need to learn more about myself? Like I don't look back on my life in things that were perceived failures or things that I'm struggling with now with any regret. Regret is it's a wasted emotion because everything, the challenges that I've been through, as well as the good things that I've been through, have all been really great learning experiences for me. And I believe that that's why I'm here on the planet, is to learn and grow and then to share that to help other people.
Absolutely. What are some I'm loving this right now because I get the opportunity to pick your brain. What are some daily practice mindset strategies, techniques that's worked for you in the past that you believe a lot of people should implement in their daily routine? Because we're constantly in this go, go, go. I have to hustle. I have to do this in order for things to move kind of mindset. And you touched on that in terms of, just the stress, the inflammation, and, we're just constantly feel overworked and anxious all the time. Can you give us some tips on how to avoid feeling like that?
Yes, absolutely. So just circling back to what I talked about before in terms of, like, say, just doing a breathing meditation once an hour, just having really something simple like that, covering all your basics in terms of drinking water, eating healthily, exercise. I didn't mention that before. And getting enough sleep. So having those foundational pieces. Personally, what I do is I spend time after breakfast every morning. Sometimes it's half an hour, sometimes it's an hour if that works for me. But it's a non-negotiable time for me to journal, to do EFT. If there's a goal that I'm working on, but I'm feeling some resistance around it, that's an opportunity for me to use, as I said, emotional freedom techniques, or there's other techniques I use to work through that. And I write out my goals every single day. And yeah, just so that they're front of mind, and just writing out, like, I'm so happy and grateful that, and, writing the goal as if I've already achieved it, and not just writing it out, but actually, like, feeling the gratitude with that. And another thing that I recommend for people to do is to have kind of a go-to list of a couple of tools or techniques that you can use if something unexpected happens. Because as I mentioned before, when something unexpected happens, or if, not all days are created equally. So you may have started off the day really well, but then things happen. It could be a series of smaller things that just build up to the point where you get really stressed out and overwhelmed. And, your brain the front part of your brain isn't getting as much blood flow as it needs. When you're in that situation, you're not in intellectual mode going, oh, yes, I wonder what meditation I should use. Oh, I wonder what app I should use. Oh, I wonder what book I should read right now. Your brain you're literally in survival mode. Your brain is in survival mode. And so I usually recommend people to, like, write it in their phone, or you can write it on a card, have it in your wallet. It's just a couple of things, like, maybe a couple of different mantras that you want to use with the breathing meditation. Maybe you've got a couple of favorite photographs, of loved ones. It could even be, a photo of your pet. that calms you, that makes you smile, that makes you laugh. But have a list that you can just kind of go to and pull out when you get maxed out, so that your brain's not having to think of, like, one more thing. Another thing that I recommend for people to do, and this is a learned skill, is to actually put yourself in your own schedule with regard to self-care. So, for example, I had you booked in my schedule today, Yahavy. And so I made sure that nothing else was booked, during this time. Because I'm not just going to, I want to, I'm honored to be a guest on your podcast, and I wanted to meet you. And so I'm not just going to blow that off and not show up. Well, if you put yourself in your own schedule and treat yourself like an appointment, whether it be guesting on a podcast, whether it be, seeing your dentist, or going to your massage therapist, or seeing your chiropractor, then that needs to be honored. And so if you're booking your self-care time, we'll say between 9 and 10 a.m., I'm just using a random number. Then if somebody says, oh, hey, Jen, can you help me out with something, like at 9:30, I can say, oh, actually, I have something scheduled then. How about 10:30? So I actually get people to rehearse saying that, because especially people who are helpers, who are like to serve people, we have a hard time saying no. If somebody asks us for help, we're like, oh yeah, sure, I can totally help you with that. So it's a learned skill that you need to practice, but that is a really key thing, is put yourself in your own schedule. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And so those things build on themselves, and it's the same with working to achieve your goals. It's a success principle. It's a wonderful strategy I love, is that take your goal and then chunk it down into smaller, doable tasks, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed thinking, okay, well, I want to, have 5 new clients this month. Well, it's pretty easy to get overwhelmed thinking, oh my gosh, how many people am I going to have to contact through LinkedIn? How many emails am I going to have to send? How many cold calls am I going to have to make? And it can just get overwhelming, all the different things that you need to do. Or, I want to, revamp my website, and you can think of like 30 bajillion things that you need to revamp or update your website. So just chunk it down into doable tasks, and then just set the task that you want to achieve that day. Our brains, it's interesting. Technology has really surpassed our brain capacity. And so our brains can really only handle a couple of things at a time to focus on. But we end up bombarding our brains with all sorts of things. I also recommend people put time limit on social media as well, because you can spend literally hours. I actually have a free PDF to download on my website about how to free up 4 hours a day. And time is money. Time is so valuable. It's such a valuable resource, but we waste a lot of it. So I have some key tools with that. I could go on and on. Yahavy, I've got a whole bunch of different ones, but those are just sort of some key ones that people can start implementing to make their lives better.
I'm doing the put myself in my schedule thing first.
Awesome.
Oh man, I got a whole notepad from I'm like, but I have to. No, I have to, because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You got to pour into you. It's just not right that if someone was talking about this the other day on, I mentioned Clubhouse before. Someone was talking about this on a Clubhouse platform. We're natural helpers, right? We always want to help. We're constantly in help mode, but we don't help ourselves first, right? So, takers, they don't have limits. So you gotta cut the slack. You gotta pour into you. You gotta put it into you, and putting yourself into your own schedule is the perfect way to start. The perfect way to start. It makes sense, right? And that is the perfect time to have more personal development, work on your belief system, try the breathing exercises that you mentioned, and just actually be present.
Yes.
That's very important, because that go, it's very, as an entrepreneur, sometimes I get in that mindset where I'm like, go, right? I got to make calls. But sometimes you don't necessarily need to be in that mode. Very interesting. I'll put a star next to that. That's I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad I asked the question. But so this has been a very, very interesting conversation. So I want to swing back on the mind body medicine, because I'm a little bit more intrigued with that. I was a personal trainer still in the field. I'm all about the mind-body connection. I'm all about that. Can you tell us a little bit more on how medicine comes into play? Because I could see it as, supplements, like mind-body supplements, right? You take your multivitamins, your fish oils, and things of that nature. I want you to kind of like break down with the importance of where does the medicine come in as far as a need for someone within the three.
Okay, so just to clarify, mind-body medicine just means looking at health from a mind-body perspective.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean like medications or surgeries or those types of things.
Yes.
However, I also want to comment on what you were saying about taking supplements and those types of things. It's all part of a piece. So it's all part of the self-care part in terms of like eating healthily. There may be certain supplements that are beneficial to you, and I always recommend people to like do their research, maybe speak to a nutritionist, personal fitness trainer, or a naturopathic doctor. And some chiropractors actually have a strong nutrition background too, before they get taking a whole bunch of different supplements, because sometimes we end up focusing on things outside ourselves and think, oh, if I take this supplement, all my problems are going to be solved, because that's what the commercial said. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I take supplements too, and they're great value, but our greatest resource is what is within us. And so there's a time and place for everything. Like I have some patients who will see me and they're very anti-medical. It's like, oh, I don't want to take, an antidepressant, or I don't want to take this medication. And I always say, there's a time and place for everything. So just as an extreme example, like if you're so far down the rabbit hole with depression and anxiety that you can't even see the options that are available to you, that may be totally be to your benefit to be on an antidepressant for a period of time, to get yourself into a space where you can do more of the personal development work. You can do maybe some counseling that you need to do to get yourself back on track. Or, if you have a bacterial infection that's gotten out of control, you may need antibiotics to get yourself back on track. Like, don't come to see me, for mindset work. Get the medical help that you need, then come and see me afterwards. So it's important. There's a lot of wonderful external resources that we have, but really it's cultivating our internal strength, growing our internal wisdom, and looking at things and healing things from the inside out as opposed from the outside in.
Love it. The internal wisdom definitely starts from within. So what would you say is the key message if, anyone listening to, of course, this episode, this podcast interview, what would be the key takeaway that you want the listeners to take away from, this episode and this talk? Because, you talked on a lot, right? You've touched on a lot of key important things, but what is the key message that you want people to take away from today?
I think a couple of things. One is just keep it simple. A lot of times we try and make things like really complicated for ourselves, but just keep it simple. So, if your schedule is already like maxed out and you're not sure how you're going to carve out time for it, just keep it simple. Like, I tell people when they're say doing a breathing meditation once an hour, I joke and I say, well, you're going to be breathing anyway. You may as well use it to your full advantage and, just take 10 deep breaths in and out. It's only going to take you, a minute or minute and a half to do. So it's not going to take you very long. So just keep it really, really simple. Let's say you've been used to drinking like 12 cups of coffee a day and maybe only 2 cups of water. Well, then just give yourself permission over the next 4 weeks to change that ratio so that you're having less coffee this week and more water, each day. And just be kind to yourself. We tend to be very, very hard on ourselves, but just be kind to yourself. Keep it simple. And sometimes what can happen, especially with entrepreneurs, is that we end up setting, 6 major goals and try to work on them all at once. I know I am guilty of this, and it's something that I need to be mindful of. Just take one goal. It's not that you won't be focusing on the others, but maybe just take one goal and maybe that's your focus for the remaining of this quarter. So just be gentle with yourself and just start with small changes. Because if you're doing small changes consistently, that's what really, it's slow and steady wins the race. That's what really will make larger, profound changes down the line.
A lot of good key points there. Please shout out your social media, your LinkedIn. Where can we follow you and keep up with all of your work and everything that you're doing now?
Actually, if people just go to my website, it's drjenniferharrison.com. So just drjenniferharrison.com. Then you can find, there's some freebies on my homepage that people can download. If they click on the About Me menu tab, then I've got my social media links there for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn are all found in one easy spot.
This was, I really enjoyed this interview. There are a lot of just you said something, keep it simple. And it is so simple. And I'm going back to that question. I said, well, how is it so simple, but yet it's so challenging for us? And I put a star next to those specific questions, right? Limited in regard to limited beliefs, mind, body medicine, personal development, stress, and how all these things kind of like factor in. But I see this as, if we add this into our routine and we're doing this every day, this is pretty much, this is a great habit tracker too. So it's pretty much just tracking your daily habits, but this is good because we've been in this pandemic for a while, right? We've been in quarantine for a while and we picked up on, the binge eating and not exercising and maybe too much scrolling up and down or too much CNN or whatever the case may be, that we're not, doing those fundamental basics that make us feel present in our lives. So, man, this was really good. I want to thank you for just going. I love when a guest comes on and they just pour in because it's a lot. And it starts with the work that we need to do. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to try some of these things.
Wonderful. There's just one more thing I wanted to share. There's a meme I created that I post on social media every once in a while. And it's just a powerful question to ask ourselves. Is what I'm watching, reading, or listening to enhancing my life or stressing me out?
Well, with that being said, we're going to close on those thoughts because, wow. Guys, like always, stream this episode and all episodes of the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast, now streaming on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Overcast, Radio Republic, and Breaker. Like always, I will see you in the next episode. What good is information if you don't apply it? Apply what you've learned today in this interview. I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'm out. It's that time. Peace.